Oh,
All
hi.
right.
Hi. It's strange, but when you first came on, it said Henry Rilling.
Yeah, I know, I changed it.
Oh, okay.
I don't know why it said Henry,
That's strange.
but I changed it.
It's because we were talking about budgets, that's why.
All right, we are live.
Okay, we're live. This is the January 4th, 2021 regular meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. Madam Clerk, would you call the roll?
Mayor Rilling,
Here,
Mr. Abrams,
Here.
Ms. Brown, Chairman Camacho,
Here.
Mr. Frere,
Here.
Mr. Jelleret,
Here.
Mr. Kasimis,
Here.
6 present, you have a quorum.
Okay. All right. First item on the agenda are the approval of the minutes of the December 2020 regular meeting.
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved. Has everyone had a chance to review it? Are there any changes, additions, deletions or anything like that?
Yeah, just a few minor ones. This is Troy. On page number 2, second, the paragraph in the second paragraph down says Mr. Daniels. At the end of that, it says, and base, it should be on their, it says HEIR, so it should be on their current need. And then on page 4, just the top, just clarifying what I said at the last meeting. It says Mr. Jelleret said he would have been happy to keep, it should be instead of them there, it should be the restaurant for another year, especially in this COVID environment. So those are my only changes.
Are there any other changes? Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Who moved?
Aye.
aye.
Who moved it?
I believe, well, actually, before you get the discussion here.
Did somebody move acceptance as amended?
Yes, I'm not sure that we need to, but if anyone cares to keep the amendments as suggested before,
Can't hear you.
I'll do that. I'll second it.
Excuse me, we're getting a lot of feedback. If everyone can mute.
Yeah.
If you're not speaking, thank you.
Okay. So anyway, so there was Troy, I think, moved the item for discussion. And I guess no one moved it for a vote. So so is there anyone that wishes to move this item to approve the minutes as amended or as discussed? All right, Artie moves it. All in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, the motion carries. The minutes.
Aye, since I wasn't present.
Okay, Ed is abstaining. The motion carries, the minutes are approved. The next item on the agenda is the transfer agenda, section B. Either Henry or Angela, would you like to discuss those?
The first transfer is economic and community development, and Sabrina and Jessica are both on the line to explain that $75,000 transfer from contingency.
Okay, yeah. All right. Who would like to discuss that or explain that?
Hi, Ed. I'll go ahead and address that. Sorry, let me turn on my camera. I didn't even realize it was off. Thank you for having me. So we have a small business and Main Streets line item account in our capital budget for economic and community development. It's normally $150,000, and that's for small business related programming. This year we used it for storefront improvement programs, the purchasing of trash cans, and we also had a little bit left over. So with the money that we had left over, we figured we wanted to do a program with leadership from the mayor's office that really gives direct assistance to our small businesses, since a lot of them have not received PPP funding or state grant funding. So we took what we had left in our account, which was $75,000. The mayor proposed that we match that amount from the contingency so that we have a full fund of $150,000. That $150,000 could then provide $5,000 of grant assistance to 30 businesses in Norwalk. We've worked up guidelines in accordance to that so that the money would only be able to be used for rental assistance, payroll, things that essentially the state grants are also available to be used for, and that we would have an application period of 3 weeks where everybody who wanted to apply would be able to apply. And then after that, we would select the grantees based on a lottery system. So everybody kind of has a fair shot. So that's what that request is for, to really match that other 75,000 that we have currently in our line item so that we can give out more grants for more impactful amounts.
Is there a how do you define small business for purposes of this application?
For purposes of this application, we copied a lot of other communities, and it's businesses that have 25 or fewer employees.
Okay.
So those can be sole proprietors as well, just anybody with less than 25 employees.
I understand.
Is it possible to get like a 50,000-foot view of what the criteria is to lend the money? Is this a loan or a grant, by the way? I'm sorry.
It's a grant. So the way
Okay.
that it would function is legal would make a grant agreement available. They would have to execute that agreement that ensures that they're spending the money according to what we would need them to spend it for. We would then receive a W-9 from them so that we could process it via finance. And then they would have to return to us receipts or payroll stubs for what they actually spent the money on.
And what's the criteria, though? I mean, can they use it for just about anything? Is it just limited to rent, or?
They can they can use it for just about anything with exclusions related to marketing and things of that nature. It's really for payroll protection, rent, utilities, operations cost for the most part. So not really to purchase any new equipment or things like that, or PPE, for example, they would be eligible to use it for. We basically just copied what the state allows them to use their funding for and what other municipalities were doing, and just copied that into our guidelines.
So no sales promotion, no marketing?
Nope.
Okay, good.
Do we have a sense of how many small businesses there are in Norwalk? In other words, what's the universe of small businesses?
So you're looking with sole proprietors, you're looking in the tens of thousands. I have direct contact with about a quarter of those, I would say. So we're going to do a massive, obviously, press release in accordance with the program so that we're reaching more people than just who's on my email list, which is, probably about 1,000 at this point. And direct contact via phone that I have with others. But Josh with communications will be able to push the information out. We'll hopefully get some article news coverage in the hour once everything's ready. And then we'll just push it out on all fronts so that we can really get as many people as we can to apply, and then see what the need is after the fact as well, to see, if there's anything else we can do, or at least just show the state that we have, as many businesses interested in applying for programs like this that might flourish into something else, a different type of program.
And do you have a sense of how long the application, the window will remain open for businesses to apply?
Yep, we're thinking 3 weeks, that you would have 3 weeks to apply. On the 4th week, we would be able to review the applications for completion and then do the lottery in that same week. On the 5th week, we would be able to announce who won the lottery and who did not win the lottery, and also simultaneously send out the grant agreements. Hopefully the following week, we would be able to receive the signed agreements as well as the W-9, and then be able to disperse within a week to 3 weeks after that date, depending on, the logistics with finance.
And obviously the lottery would be witnessed. It wouldn't be like a secret lottery.
Yeah, correct.
Hey, Sabrina, I have a question.
Sure.
When the PPP came out, there were a lot of companies that were criticized for taking money that when they really didn't need it, they were already profitable. How are you going to be able to weed out companies that actually don't need the money, but get this to those that are in distress?
Sure. So we were looking at that as well, if we would require a tax return from previous and have them just explain to us a loss. So you are making this much money before the pandemic. This is how much you're making now. That could be an attachment included in the application, and we do have a spot for that. So they would have to certify that they have a substantial loss, which is qualified as 25% of your business being less than it was previous to COVID.
Thank you.
Seems to me that this could be very labor intensive on your part, no?
With the lottery being taken into account, it actually does not become that labor intensive. If I did have to review on specific criteria, specifically, it would be way more labor intensive. The way that we've designed the application is that if somebody responds no to a specific question that doesn't meet our criteria, it automatically weeds them out. So I'll have a pool that will generally be an Excel sheet from all of the applicants, and then I'll be able to just use that for the lottery, where each one is assigned a number, and then that number corresponds to the lottery number that gets picked, and then it would just work that way. So I don't think from a labor perspective, it's going to be that difficult, especially if we're using a generic grant agreement. We do a similar process for our storefront improvement grants, and it's pretty plug and play for the grant agreement because everybody's agreeing to the same thing. And then just on the back end, just getting the information back from the individuals, like the receipts and things like that, might be a bit of a challenge, but we haven't had issues in the past with our previous programming, so I'm not foreseeing that being an issue.
But you're confident, Sabrina, even the organizations who, once you get through the organizations who all meet criteria, you've got the bandwidth and the manpower to review the tax returns and other things to ensure that, you know, they are truthful in the fact that their business is down year to year, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
Hi there. Good evening. It's Jessica. I just wanted to weigh in on some of the responses that Sabrina is providing. We are happy to help Sabrina in her review and also making sure that the businesses are meeting the criteria. So although Sabrina is the Business Development and Tourism Director, we do have the Economic Development team. And so we're able to help her. Maritza's able to help with some of the administrative work and communications back and forth, and also helping with that spreadsheet and helping with the communications and collecting W-9s and tracking. And I'll be there to help as well. So Sabrina will have a lot of support in being able to make sure that the letters and the communications go well and the lottery goes well as all the final follow-up. So I just wanted to offer that to everybody, that Sabrina won't be on her own. We'll be there to help.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, real quick, this Troy. Will not-for-profits be involved in this grant procedure, or?
They're specifically for for-profit enterprises.
Okay.
And then last question for me, Henry, from the city, or Angela from the city side, because this is important and it's something that's well worth doing. We don't have any concern about taking this money out of contingency at this time of the year, do we?
I don't think so, not for the amount of money we're talking about. Our tax collections have held up. We now have a new government mandated 60-day additional grace period on the second half taxes. So Lisa and I are watching that very closely. But given this amount of money, I don't think it's a problem.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none. I guess I'm not. The item hasn't been moved. I think it was moved for discussion, but not for approval. Is there a motion to approve the
So
item?
moved. So moved.
Who was that?
Jim.
Hi,
Jim
Jim.
Frayer.
Okay. So Jim has moved the item. All in favor of the dollars?
Aye.
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 Is anyone opposed to that transfer? Any abstentions? All right, the item carries and the transfer has been approved.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The next transfer item is the registrar of voters. I know.
Stuart Walls is on to explain these transfers. All three of them are from contingency.
Stuart, you're on mute. You're on mute at the moment. the lower left of your screen, I think, is where the. There you go. Pardon me.
Very good. I lost the icon for some reason or other. Those three items are essentially primary expenses, which of course were not in our budget. They were in the budget for last year when it was originally scheduled in April. But it got kicked back a couple of times by the governor, so it ended up in this year in August. We got grant money and stuff to cover a lot of stuff, but those items and we had money in other accounts to help with the payment for some other items, but the three there, which was the rental on St. Mary's, obviously we have it twice instead of once. Moving expenses to move all the stuff to the polls and bring it back again twice with the primary and general election, and ballot printing and all that with the memory card programming and so forth.
Okay.
The
So
state money and things that did come in, I think we got 75,000 from the state and also another 50,000 from a outside grant. But these still need to be, which cover a lot of personnel expenses and so forth. I'm not just sure how that's going to end up at the end of the year, but these accounts would currently be short.
okay. Are there any questions? So I've got a quick question. So would you typically not budget for primaries? Is that?
Generally, we have not budgeted for primaries unless they're certain to be held, which the, of course, presidential primary was certain to be held, but it was supposed to be, so there's nothing in this year's budget. It was there for last year. I'm sure you got the money back that was budgeted, but it still has to be appropriated this year. If we know there's one coming, as we often do, say when an open seat for governor and some of those, we tend to have those primaries, municipal sometimes, sometimes not. Hard to say. Also, sometimes perhaps one district or precinct and not the whole city. But this year's presidential was expected, but not in this fiscal year.
So the state funding that you received, the additional state funding and the 50,000 from the private vendor or independent vendor, what happens if that's not used? Would that fall back into the city's budget, or does that have to go back to the stores?
As to the private vendor, we have to report by the end of this month that we had qualifying expenses. We ran through it, Brian and I, and we think we have plenty of those to do it. It ran from June 15th to the end of last year. We didn't get the money until mid-December, so wasn't able to sort of spend the last dime, but I think we have enough, we have plenty of expenses. The state, I'm not particularly familiar with. It's a new thing. They got federal money. I'm sure there's reporting requirements they gave them. They handed that off. But there were vast sums. This both of these grants included money for the town clerk's efforts, absentee balloting and so forth.
I see.
So they didn't differentiate. They were shared. The grant from the state was just for both of us, elections in general. And in the other case, Rick's office was too busy to apply separately for any grant money. So we agreed that I would just apply and indicate we were paying for everything. And we got 50,000, so seems like a goodly number.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. Is there a motion to approve those transfers totaling $20,999?
So moved.
Ed has the item. All in favor of the transfer? Opposed? Abstentions? Carries, and the transfer items are approved. All right. So that appears to be it for the action items on our agenda, unless there's something else that I don't see. The rest of the agenda really is a financial report for informational purposes. Would either Angela or, well, is there someone from Oak Hills on the line? I mean, on the call, on the Zoom? No, all right. Is there any, could we get a brief summary of those financial reports if possible?
Sure. First of all, the Oak Hills is still surpassing expectations in both revenue rounds, cart sales, and their net income position. Their cash position is also doing well, which this is the off season. So I haven't talked with them directly, but everything still looks good. They had unbudgeted restaurant revenue that came in, but that's ending in November, or did end in November. But it doesn't look like that should affect their cash position negatively.
Okay.
On the city side, everyone looks on track with their expenditures on the operating budget. There's nothing that jumps out. Everything is on track for this portion of the year that's expired.
Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. That appears to be it. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Before we adjourn, is there anything that we have to do, any homework on that capital budget that was sent out by Angela earlier?
No, not for now. The next step is the Planning Commission will have their meetings with each department. So there's nothing for the BET to do.
Having understanding that, I move that we adjourn.
All in favor? The meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank
Yep.
you. Good night.
Night.
Thanks, Ed.